Hello everybody, welcome back as ever to various Oddities Showcase, and I don't have a lot exactly to show you guys today, but what we do have to show is, well, if you understand it in the slightest element, and I will try and help you on that, it's actually pretty dang amazing. So, what I'm currently stood atop is a heat gradient. This is the orders of color that we have available to things like wool, stained glass, concrete, that kind of thing, arranged from the coldest to the hottest, which somehow ends up being brown. And that I have been using as a gradient to express the amount of space available in an area, because I've still been working on Hive Generation, and we've been working expressly on the interior Hive Generation, that is to say, hives that generate inside of existing structures. And here we have my test cases. So we have the very simple one over here, which is just more or less a two-dimensional kind of search. Then we have a relatively simple sort of like starter home with an enchanting room and a smeltery in the back that's got a little bit of redstone, big storage room there, bedroom in the back, like just really cozy, that kind of thing. Here we have a more open plan one. This one is particularly pernicious in defeating because in order to detect useful space, we have to identify groups of areas rather than one entire area. And if you just have things just joining directly off the sides there with no doorways, then it's kind of hard to actually identify distinctions between rooms. So open plan living is a massive headache for Hive Generation indoors. And then we have a really simple open plan one, just to really make sure we've nailed the two. And here we have the open plan that's divided into an unusual shape, an irregular shape. It's the same structure, except this time there's a wall going through two of the joins, which reduces it to a U shape. So if the system can break this down into usable shapes, then it's pretty solid. And previously I was using what's called heat map analysis, so we were trying to generate, by bouncing signals off of walls and whatnot, a scale of hot to cold that would indicate how much open space was around a given point. And that probably would work if I could actually nail it. But I spent about 2 weeks working on that, and we didn't really actually get very far, honestly. And then, as is often the way when you've spent 2 weeks working on something and trying extremely hard and looking up actual straight-up research papers to figure it out, I figured something out in 30 minutes at the end of stream, and that seems to actually be working perfectly and flawlessly. So here we have the interior rift, and let's just go from light to heavy over here. So it roots through, it's taller than that because it's actually reaching up to the sky with its useful space. And here we have an arrangement of cubes, or rectangular prisms at the very least. And this, in the color of these, is relative to the smallest axis on each one. So pink there indicates that it's got about 4 at its smallest axis, whereas these are 1, so they're very dark indeed. And this actually is pretty much exactly what we're looking for. We're looking for different rooms broken down, identified as distinct regions that we can then just assign purposes to inside of our hive. So the actual area that's covered by this is determined by the green flecks down there, and we go have a look at them. They're looking quite nice, looking quite cheerful and diverse and varied. I'm probably going to be working out a little bit on this bottom section here, so it actually looks a bit more smooth than it currently does. It's very messy at the moment. And once the hive has generated this, we can say this room is a hatchery, this room is a storage area, that kind of thing. Maybe this one's a prison, that sort of thing. But to do that, we actually need to make sure that we can reliably scan basically any base a human could ever create. And especially in a modern environment, there's always going to be limits. This system, for instance, has no capacity to recognize the open blocks elevators, so it does not know if you can go through those to get to another area. But this one is a little bit more complex. This one's very much still on the vanilla scale of things, but it looks quite nice. It actually looks quite nice when it's coated in creep as well. So, yep. And this one also can be scanned, can be understood. Now, currently, I'm showing every single box that it is able to identify. In reality, we would be looking for only ones of a certain minimum size, that's to say, at least 2 by 2 by 2. So currently all of the dark ones in here would actually be completely excised from the final model, because we would presume if the creeps reach them, then we can as well. And also the changelings will be able to teleport between different rooms in the hive just to free up a little space on the pathfinding side of things. But we can see it has indeed managed to break down the interior layout of this building into an actual useful set of cubes. And here we go with the really big one. This one takes an age because it is so large, and it just takes that long to spread through. So let me just explain a little bit more about what's happening. So every single piece of creep is calculated and stored inside of the actual rift. The creep is then used to extrapolate all of the available air and other useful blocks. So things like things like torches, that sort of thing. Things like torches, pressure plates, half slabs, they're all included in that useful volume. It's not necessarily blocks it will replace, it's just recognizable space that it has access to. And once it has that, it can generate a full list of all the available blocks, and then it just flies through them, starting with, well, just it starts by picking a bottom left, I believe it is, corner, and a bottom back left corner, to be exact. I think it more or less would start about there for one point and then end over here, and it tries to grow that to be as large as it possibly can be before it starts running out, before it misses one of the blocks it needs to complete that shape. And every time it goes through that, it tries to pick the largest possible box it could add, that it could take out of our total list of blocks, adds that to the list and removes all of its blocks from our list. So we just continually add the largest possible block that we possibly could, and that means that we end up with these very large kind of sections here. And, yep, we can see pressure plates causing a little bit of a nuisance right there. And obviously, here we have broken down the large space to mostly 2 major areas. That's also the atrium, the first little atrium there, that's also been broken down to a relatively large area as well. And we've got the 2 offshoot rooms as well, and the archways, which were a pain in the neck for our previous heat map generation, are more or less just ignored. We're skipping over them entirely, which is fine, because it means we're still managing to separate our different rooms. If we had a situation where there was one room that could be a hatchery and then nothing for anything else, what we would actually do is we would take the box and then we would find any boxes that are adjacent to it and keep adding to them until we have a set of boxes that are actually of a suitable size. And this one's very cute. This one's very cute, I think. So it's just, yeah, just really tiny shape. And there it is. Just reduces it to 3 different rooms, which is pretty sweet. And then there's the U-shape, which is our final test. Now, I should note, this is still a work in progress. This is not remotely the final form. It will not remotely be placing concrete structures 25 blocks above your base or anything. It is just for demonstration during the testing phase, as it were. So once again, this takes an age to actually spread out. We can see some points will actually illuminate themselves, so there is a little bit of light still to be found inside of a dense changeling hive. But nonetheless, we should see this completing in a hot minute. And I think that's the maximum it's managed to get to. Okay. It currently has a limit of 64 when it's growing at high speed from the rift. And it is currently working, but it should pop up any moment now. There we are. So, very similar to the other one, because of course they are very much the same kind of shape. But if we go down here, we can see we've actually got a number of different shapes. So these ones actually end about here, because this is the largest section that it could add. So it's prioritizing very large rooms, or at least the largest possible rooms at each individual step, which allows us to make the most use of the actual space. Once we've got that, we need to actually do a check to see how much of the cube in question is on solid ground. So, for instance, we have the white caps on top of the blue rooms up here, which is completely in midair. So those would probably just be culled from the list before we actually start assigning spaces and such. But basically, we have done the nigh impossible here already, which is we have made a system that can adequately recognize available useful space inside of any conceivable structure in this game. In most games, actually, this is the kind of system that you would use in, like, search and rescue, as well as other things. I also very strongly believe that something like this is used when building Lego sculptures. Like, that's the kind of thing that I've coded together here in the span of, like, a day or so. So that is what we currently have going. The next step, of course, is to identify what these rooms are and what goes inside of them, and also how. So we need to start working on hatcheries and storages and all sorts of other things to really make life inside the hive a bit more, alive. Anyways, that is what I have for you guys today. The 1.14 update is still in progress, but we should hopefully have that out by, say, March time. And hope you've all enjoyed. I'll catch you all as ever next time.